Saturday, August 23rd. So last week was yet another wackadoodle week. Of course, we came into the week coming out of that full moon in Aquarius energy. Definitely sparked some insights, some downloads, some revelations, some epiphanies that didn't make sense to us at the time. But over the course of the week, we are definitely starting to realize what it is that we have to do, what it is that we have to pursue, and what we need to kind of eliminate, release out of our lives in order to free up the space in order for us to pursue this new path. That full moon in Aquarius popped off on the 9th. We followed it up with a major shift in our headspace when Mercury decided to go direct on the 11th. We knew that the 11th was going to be jam-packed, filled with a lot of electricity in the air because Saturn and Uranus came together for their second aspect in this sextile that began back in the spring of 2025 and is going to carry us through until the very beginnings of 2026. We had Venus and Jupiter come together for their annual conjunction this year in Cancer energy. That popped off on the 12th, and of course, all of this energy was being supported by the building intensity to the last quarter moon in Taurus energy that is but hours away as I'm coming to you live here Friday evening. Now, this week we have a lot going on yet again, but it's going to be very subtle, very underneath the surface, if you will. This is the week that is going to change the game. And I know there's a lot of hesitation to believe that that is true, but hopefully after we kind of, go through the details of what this week has to offer, hopefully we are going to start seeing that this is the pivot point week that we have been building towards. Why, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. First of all, we're going to be wrapping up Leo season here this week, and we're going to be shifting into Virgo season. And this is no typical Virgo season. We have the new moon in Virgo taking place immediately after we shift into this Virgo season. Now, typically speaking, Leo season is a time where we have a major change in our heart space, in our energy, in our authenticity, in our passion projects. This particular Leo season was a little bit stunted where progress is concerned because we had to learn a whole hell of a lot of patience. This new version of self, this new identity that we're trying to anchor in is requiring a lot of energy from us to process, to sort through all of the old patterns, all of the old programs, all of the old habits and behaviors of the old version of self. And so here this Leo season really activated our heart space to illuminate to us what it is that we are moving on from, what we're no longer attached to, what we truly need to embody and embrace within ourselves to be the vibratory match for the outcome in which we want to manifest. So we've been kind of spinning our tires here this Leo season. We can blame that on all of those retrograde planets, of course. It is a time for inner restructuring, inner rebuilding, inner reformatting, and all of the glitches, all of the heartbreak, all of the pressure, all of the memories that have been coming back full force through this Leo season that we haven't been able to do anything about. The minute that we move into Virgo season, this is where the reset happens. This is where the rewiring of our programming happens. And typically speaking, Virgo season, each and every single calendar year, is a time for us to get organized, for a time for us to get our shit together. But what makes this Virgo season a little bit different is, of course, it's catapulting us into eclipse season. And it's very interesting. I spoke on this before, but it's very interesting that as of late, we don't get very far into the season before we have the new moon of the season. In very weird fashion here this week, we have 2 moon days, which of course offers us a time for emotional refinement and realignment. What is super interesting is we have 1 full day that the moon is going to be void. And the moon happens to be void in Leo energy, and it happens to be void as we usher in Virgo season. And the minute that we enter into Virgo season, the energy starts to build towards the new moon in Virgo that is going to be taking place the minute that that Leo moon kind of releases its void, that emotional limbo state that we're going to find ourselves in. And we usher into the moon in Virgo and we pop off at a 0 degree 23 minutes of the sign. Now, to kind of put this into perspective, this week is about reflection, review, understanding where it is that, again, a lot of the struggle, a lot of the triggers and activations that we've been experiencing through Leo season, they have to come to a head. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to the elemental energy profile that I've included on the daily energy forecast, but we have been very strong, very dominant in fire energy, overwhelming in fire energy. And of course, if you want to connect that to real life events, it's no wonder, well, most of us are on fire with temperature, and in most locations, especially up here in Canada, physically on fire as well. So we've been running hot, and we knew that that was going to happen. However, we immediately move into this Virgo season, and we essentially take a shovelful of earth and we throw it on the campfire that is starting to get a little bit out of control. And that snuffs that campfire, that fire, that flame out just a tad. And that is going to give us a little bit of breathing room for the smoke to clear, for us to gain a perspective on what it is that we need to be doing now. Now, the Virgo season in its entirety is ruled over by Mercury. And Mercury, he is still trying to get himself up to speed, up to snuff, if you will. He's in his post-retrograde shadow period for a little bit more time. He's in Leo energy, the heart and soul of the zodiac. And so it's going to be an interesting dynamic that we enter into Virgo season. We enter into the dark phase of the moon in Virgo energy, while Mercury is still kind of struggling to get his heart and head aligned. Now, the energy of Virgo, because it's ruled over by Mercury, but because it's an earth sign, this is why I say that this is the rewiring point, because this is about mind and matter. Mercury rules over the headspace, and whatever it is that we focus on is what we manifest. It's what we create. And because it's an earth sign, we have the ability to flip the script in our programming, in our narrative, in our habits, in our patterns, in our behaviors, by what we allow to be changed and altered in our mental plane. So there is a direct correlation between what we allow to go on in our headspace and what actions we take in our physical realm to make this new programming actually true, actually legit. We also have to consider the fact that Virgo season is the time where, yes, we get organized, yes, we get our shit together, but we start fixing, healing, repairing, and resolving a lot of the issues that we realize now throughout Leo season that we have still lingering, that we still have kind of on our headspace, in our heart space, and in our physical realms. We have a major change, a major transition taking place in our inner realm that now we have to take action upon in order to integrate, in order to anchor in and ground into reality. And that's what that Virgo energy, what that Virgo season is going to do for us. So the build up to Virgo season kind of popping off. Virgo season begins on the 22nd. We have the new moon in Virgo popping off early on the 23rd. The build up to this particular threshold point, this doorway, if you will, is going to be hot. It's going to be spicy. Specifically, this week, we enter into the week with the moon in Gemini. So we know that there's going to be a little bit more of an extroverted type of vibe to kick the week off. We're pulling out of that last quarter moon in Taurus phase that, again, if you're listening to me here Friday evening, first of all, thank you for being here. But secondary to that, we're just but hours away of this last quarter moon phase actually kind of peaking. It will be peaking, well, 1:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here Saturday, August 16th. And that is at the latter degrees of this Taurus energy, which has us reflecting back to the new moon in Leo, because this is the cycle that we are manifesting under as of late. This is going to put into perspective our materialistic realm attachments to people, places, and things, to routines, to situations and circumstances that at one time provided us a foundation, a structure that supported and encouraged our lives, our goals, to make us feel safe and secure, that at this particular point, it's kind of limiting. It's kind of restricting, if you will. And so we come out of the introvertedness of that last quarter moon phase in Taurus energy. And when the moon shifts into Gemini energy, suddenly we want to go out into the world. We need the exterior realm to stimulate us, to inspire us, to kind of create the situation of revelation where the light bulb moment is going to go off and suddenly we're going to start piecing together a lot of the downloads that we received last week under that full moon in Aquarius that got domino effect, bulldozed, if you will, again, followed up by the Saturn-Uranus sextile, the Venus and Jupiter conjunction. And we're starting to piece things together in a way that is actually like making sense to us because Mercury is now direct. Even though he went direct last week, he was still kind of in that drunken slumber, if you will. He was still in an altered state of awareness. And as he moves through his post-retrograde shadow period, we gain more clarity. We gain more, let's call it insight, details, information, and we're able to actually plan and strategize around this new information that we're receiving. But the interesting part comes, well, late Monday. Typically, I want to focus on Tuesday for this particular rant because what we have happening is that the moon is going to be shifting into her rulership in Cancer energy. And I know everybody's like, oh no, not the moon in Cancer. I think the moon in Cancer probably ranks second on the list of worst moon transits. The first being, of course, moon in Scorpio. Nobody really tends to enjoy that either. But why I think this is going to be the revelation point, the pivot point, if you will, is because the sun is in its rulership in Leo energy, and the moon is going to be in her rulership in Cancer energy. And when we have the luminaries in their respective powerhouse placements, that's when shit gets real. That's when there's a realignment between our inner realm and our outer realm. And interestingly enough, we have the moon in this Cancer energy kind of reflecting back upon all the things that have transpired through Leo season in preparation for the moon to shift into Leo midweek. Now, when that happens, we're going to essentially experience a burn down period. I think that this week it would be quite accurate to say that this is going to be things burning up, things burning through, things burning down, and then things burning out. And the reason for that, and the reason why I think that, is because when the moon shifts into Leo energy, emotionally speaking, that is us realizing the shift, the pivot point, the change, the transformation that has taken place within us through the course of Leo season. And of course, Leo season is very connected to our ego identity, our ego avatar. And we're realizing now where it is that this new version of self wants to be anchored in, wants to come out to play, wants to be a permanent version of self moving on and moving forward. But we have a lot of emotional and mental baggage still lingering from the old version of self. And I think many of us have been triggered and activated in the worst kind of ways throughout this Leo season, mostly because, again, we've been kind of smoking our tires, going nowhere's fast with all of these retrograde planets, which means that all of the energy that we wanted to put out into the world in our external realm, it's been trapped inside, basically burning us from the inside out. But it's a necessary process in order to burn through that emotional and mental residue, the emotional baggage that we've been carrying into our present moment from our past, expecting things to change when it can't change because we're still operating on the old programming. So interestingly enough, on Thursday, that's going to be the last full day of Leo season, and the moon is going to be in Leo energy. But we go void, of course, in the afternoon, and then we don't lock into Virgo energy until Saturday, which leaves Friday. Okay, so Friday, the moon is going to be void, of course, all day in this Leo energy. So we're in a state of emotional limbo. We are teeter-tottering between the old version of self, the new version of self, the old reality, the new reality. And then on Friday, the moon being in the void all day is when the sun is sitting at the 29 critical crisis karmic degree of this Leo energy before it shifts into Virgo season at 4:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time there on August 22nd. So we shift into Virgo season. Suddenly, all of the burning energy that we're going to be experiencing, as we wrap up Leo season, suddenly it just gets snuffed out. And we're going to feel so uncomfortable and so awkward and so disoriented because we've been, whether you realize it or not, we've been managing all of this fire energy to the best of our abilities, not even realizing what has been burning out and burning down and what's being burned through and what's just, on fire in our inner realm, in our unconscious state, in our conscious state, in our physical bodies. I know many of us have been experiencing high temperature in our physical form. That is the energy. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Schumann resonance throughout this past week, but it has been absolutely popping. It's been popping because we reached new levels of consciousness and awareness under that full moon in Aquarius. We received all of these downloads and insights that we haven't been able to make sense of, and now they're landing. Now they are actually anchoring in once we enter into that Virgo realm, if you will. And again, Saturday, August 23rd, very early in the morning, 1:24 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the moon leaves that limbo state of being void, of course, in Leo energy for like 35 plus hours, if you will, total from Thursday into Saturday. We lock into that Virgo energy at 1:24 a.m. And then at 2:06 a.m., again, all Eastern Standard Time, we have that new moon in Virgo popping off at a 0 degree. Now, reminder, the nodes of the moon are currently on the Pisces and Virgo axis. When we had the nodes of the moon shift into this particular axis from the Aries and Libra axis not too long ago, basically, this year-ish, but we definitely got a taste of it, I'm going to say late fall of 2024, we are essentially, again, this is Virgo season is catapulting us into eclipse season. We started this Virgo and Pisces axis with a lunar event, with an eclipse event at a 29 critical crisis karmic degree. Now, that's beautiful, okay? But a 0 degree is raw energy. It has no containment, no boundaries yet. It is just new energy coming in. And because this is happening at a 0 degree, 23 minutes of the sign, we take a look at, 2 plus 3, that equals 5. 5 is a residual effect of Leo season, which means that our heart space is being anchored in. The changes, the pivot points, the transformation that has popped off through Leo season under this new moon, this dark phase of the moon. Our heart space is being anchored in, this new version of self's operating system being anchored in, and the Virgo energy, because it's ruled over by Mercury, but it is an earth sign, this is the rewiring of the mental plane. This is the rewiring of that narrative. And so, the whole Virgo season, this season, is going to be wackadoodle. Let me just give you a rundown. And again, side note, if you're interested on a personal type of reading where Virgo season and eclipse season is concerned, please jump over to my website, reserve your spot. They are going very quick. We have Saturn retrograding back into Pisces once Virgo season kind of pops off here. We have Uranus retrograding in this Gemini energy. We have a full moon lunar eclipse popping off in Pisces energy. We have Mercury moving into Libra. We have Venus moving into Virgo. And then we have the new moon solar eclipse that will be popping off in Virgo energy hours before Mars leaves Libra energy for Scorpio energy, one of his rulerships, which happens only hours before the sun moves into Libra energy, the equinox hits, and we have another karmic checkpoint. So again, that's the reason why I created the Virgo season reading, because this is going to be wackadoodle all freaking month. And once we kind of get this new moon, which is the last new moon that we're going to have in quote unquote normal energy territory, because it's technically not normal, it's at a 0 degree. It's unfiltered energy. It is unnamed energy. It is at a 0 degree. It is the rawest, most realist, most vulnerable energy that we could possibly be bringing into our systems. And this is the zero sum game. We are back to square one with this new version of self, with rewiring the brain. There's a lot going on. And so this is the last quote unquote new normal moon before we dive into eclipse season. And that eclipse season takes us all the way into that karmic checkpoint that the equinox is when the sun shifts into Libra energy. And so again, if you want to go back, take a listen to my 2025 year ahead overview. This is the point in the calendar where things actually start changing, actually start shifting. And I think it's a very interesting dynamic when you consider the fact that this is the pivot point when we kind of reset and rewire the system in preparation for, again, Saturn retrograding back into Pisces energy. Why is that important, you may ask? Well, because when Saturn dips back into the Pisces energy, that's when we further dissolve the systems, the structures that, again, we have been struggling to let go of, struggling to release, that we have to at this point. This is going to be the last hurrah. And then to have Uranus go retrograde in the Gemini energy, now there is a rewiring of our internal systems going on. With Uranus and Gemini energy being in a direct situation, we've been kind of facing external situations and circumstances that have us challenging our old ideas, our old information, our old wisdom, if you will, old perspectives, old ways of doing things, old ways of communicating. But when Uranus retrogrades, suddenly we have to take a look at where it is that we're kind of holding on to the old programming, the old dialogue, the old narratives, the old perspectives for dear life. And this is going to illuminate for us where it is that we're overly attached to a particular perspective or a particular thought, an idea, particular information, particular communication styles. So the rewiring of our nervous system, of our inner dialogue, of our inner narrative, of all of those things, it starts under the 0-degree new moon, and it gets triggered and activated, stripped down, if you will, with all of those layers being peeled back throughout the course of technically September. And then we're not in control once we enter into eclipse energy. The universe takes the wheel, so to speak, and we are about to be put on the path that we failed to put ourselves upon. And while we're going through this, very intense rewiring, this is going to really put into perspective who it is that we will never be again. So the struggle, the teeter-totter, the fence that we've all been sitting on, the exhaustion point that we have all reached, this is coming to a head here this week with the sun and, again, the moon in Leo specifically. I feel like that is the intensity. That is the breakthrough point. But again, that breakthrough point is coming from getting burnt down, burnt through. And that is a lot of fire energy to contain. And then immediately we move into an earth season that is going to make us wonder where all of our energy went. This is a very, I'm going to call it subtle, internalized, rewiring, restructuring while we attempt to get organized and get our shit together in the external realm. One thing that I did not mention is this is also the last full week that Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money, will be in Cancer energy. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm about done with her. The constant throwback to the past, the sensitivity in the emotional realm, the teeter-totter between, romanticizing what could have been and realizing the reality check of what currently is and not being sure on what we potentially want for ourselves, where safety, security, stability, relationship dynamics, financial situations are concerned. I'm about done with that. The water energy, again, is very much oversaturating us. And I know that we have a lot of fire energies in the cosmos, so we should be thankful for this very little water energy. But it's not the mood, it's not the vibe. And I, for one, cannot wait until the 25th when Venus moves into that Leo energy, giving us the boldness, the bravery, the courage that we have been lacking to do all of the damn things. And because that is following, Virgo season, it's following this new moon at a 0-degree, where the rewiring, the pivot point is absolutely taking place, that's going to give us the oomph in our heart space to kind of do what needs to be done, to do the things that we're currently resisting and avoiding even acknowledging that need to be done in order for us to break away from the past. So believe it or not, that was just my summary. That was just my overview on what this week has in store. We haven't even really gotten into the good parts yet, specifically talking about the Ascension symptoms. But I wanted to give you the lay of the land because, we've all been struggling. The pressure that each and every single one of us has been feeling is due to, first of all, the oppositions taking place in the cosmos right now, the kite formations that are taking place in the cosmos right now, the retrograde planets that are taking place in the cosmos right now. We are under a very, very pressurized system. And if you are still getting up every day and pushing through it, congratulations. You are a warrior of light. Thank you very much for doing the work, for showing up, for holding the space, for holding the line. But we have just another little challenge coming at us here this week to confirm to us, to validate for us that we are sick of this shit, sick of our own damn selves, if you will. And we all have to get to that point before we're able to open ourselves up to flip the script and to start this rewiring process. So, as I previously mentioned, as I'm coming to you here live Friday evening, we are sitting in the intensity building towards this last quarter moon in Taurus. And it has a lot of aches and pains coming with it because, again, the Taurus energy is very much about the physical form. This is, again, if you were with me here last week for the Ascension forecast, I kind of talked about how all of the major energy events that we had taking place over the course of last week, all of that was getting shoved back into our vessel with this last quarter moon in Taurus. And the discomfort of that was going to illuminate for us where it is that, again, in our physical realms, we have some attachments to people, places, and things that we have to let go of because, again, at one point in time, they were providing us with security, with safety, with stability that now is kind of acting as a restrictor to where it is that we would desire to go from here. And so if you're following along in the moon guide, I would definitely recommend that you lean into that shadow work, to that light work, to that manifesting ability, to those journal prompts. If you're wondering where you can kind of access that moon guide, of course, you can kind of purchase it on its own through Patreon. We have a lot of energy events popping off, and we're still moving through August's energy guide. If you're not taking part in, doing the work with all of these particular astrology transits, you're not only sleeping on yourself, but you're failing the collective. And I would really invite you to do the work. And again, if you are not a Patreon VIP, you can jump over there and still access these resources as you wish. You can purchase them just solo resource adventure. We still have a lot going on here in August. And like I said, we are getting very prepared to flip the script, to flip the switch on this new version of self in a big way here this week. And I would definitely recommend to get in alignment with these energies. And also, if you are curious on what this Virgo season is going to mean for you and how to kind of ride the wave of this eclipse season coming at us, I would definitely recommend to snag yourself a spot for that Virgo season reading as well. So let's jump into the Ascension symptoms. So as I've already previously kind of laid out and mentioned, this is a reset week. This is a rewire week. This is us realizing what has to be burnt down and burnt through in order to free us, liberate us from some of the attachments, from some of the restrictions that, again, at one point in our lives was kind of supporting us, that at this point, not serving us at all. And so we have to expect that, I'm going to say up until the 22nd, we're going to be on fire in our inner realm, in our outer realm. The energies are going to be popping. They are going to be coming in very strong throughout the crown. They are going to be illuminating the pains of the energy blockages in your physical form that energy is trying to push through. That is where the most discomfort is going to kind of arise within each and every single one of us. It's going to be different for each and every single one of us because, newsflash, we're all different. And we're all at different stages of this healing game. We're all at different stages of clearing out the junk and the gunk of our, let's call it lineage trauma. But for the collective, we can expect to have particular ascension symptoms kind of be that very first domino that kind of knocks over the system of dominoes that's going to illuminate for us where it is that we still have some mental and emotional work to do within ourselves. So obviously, we want to just talk about the crown. We want to talk about the headspace. But what I actually think is going to happen, I don't know that it's going to be, headaches and migraines as much as it's going to be like memory zaps. It's going to feel like there's an electricity vibration buzz in your head. It's going to feel a little bit disorienting because, again, there is this like timeline bleed that is happening here this week, this dimensional bleed, if you will. And basically, that's disorienting. And it needs to be in order for us to kind of be open enough to gain a new perspective, or at least to think our way through why it is that we feel discombobulated, why it is that we can't remember certain things, why it is that we have a hard time focusing, why it is that we're having a hard time concentrating. I think that the auditory sensory system is going to be jacked up, meaning that sounds are going to be way, way louder than they actually are. And we're picking up on a different type of frequency here this week that may not feel as nice to the ears as we would hope that it would. It's going to be very high pitched. And it's not so much like the high-pitched ear ringing that we get, which I'm sure there's a high probability that we're going to have some situations of that pop off, but it's almost as if there is an annoying high vibration like sound in your environment that you haven't heard before, that you can't pinpoint. You'll likely be like walking around the house, putting your ear up to like, you know, your appliances or electronics, trying to find this goddamn buzz, okay? The buzz is going to get you. And so that buzz manifests not only as sound, but as actual like buzzing sensations in the head. And it feels like there may be like a buzzing situation in your ear. Like, you know, the vibrations, if you will, create an itchiness or a discomfort of sorts that you just can't seem to ease. And that's going to be annoying AF. What I would also think is going to take place just with the crown in the headspace is that our hair is changing again. And with all the fire energy out in the cosmos, I would say that most of us are erring on the side of being too dry. If you even have oily hair, you're probably, you know, experiencing a dry spurt with hair. I would say that the scalp is going to feel like there's something crawling on it, or super itchy, if you will, and your hair may actually even hurt. There's a lot of activations taking place here this week. We've already received the downloads that came with the full moon in Aquarius and all of the domino effects that we've experienced over this past week. So the information data packets are already within us, but we're opening up those files for the first time. And so these aha moments, these epiphanies do kind of have a physical sensation of, you know, a lighter headspace. Like there's a clarity there, like we're seeing things differently. And our eyes have been going through quite a metamorphosis, if I do say so myself. But I think that this week, it's just going to feel like everything is a little bit crispier. So the light is crispier, the colors are more vibrant, everything just seems like it is, you know, coming at us in 4K digital. You know what I mean? Like everything is just crystalline at this point. And I think that that is a good thing because it means that we are actually gaining clarity. Our eyes aren't being fogged out. They're not being veiled. They're not being, you know, smoked out, if you will. I think that we are opening our eyes and we're using a new set of eyeballs, if you will, and a certain level of sensitivity comes with that. I do think that there are a lot of intuitive flashes, intuitive insights. And these flashes may be glimmers of where it is that you need to be from here. And it's not something that you're consciously thinking of. So I don't mean like you're sitting down and you're dazing off into space and you're thinking about, oh, I wonder if I should make this decision, or I wonder if I should make this choice, and I wonder what being in that environment would look like or feel like. It's not that at all. It's literally you're going about your day doing the mundane tasks and chores that you have to do, and it's not even that you're spaced out or dazed out or confused. It's just in a sudden moment, suddenly it's like, oh my God, I never thought of that, or oh my God, I didn't even know that I knew that, or oh my God, I didn't even know that I remembered that. It is in those moments that you are unpacking those data packets. It is those moments that you are starting to integrate the downloads that you've already received. And all of those insights are going to stream together, are going to connect the dots together, a common thread that eventually you're going to have enough information, details, and clarity to start actually formulating a plan and a strategy on what the next steps of your life actually are. And again, once we get into Virgo season, yes, I know we're entering into Virgo season under the dark phase of the moon. So again, there isn't as much intuitive and clarity as we were hoping for. But again, this is a time for us to get organized, to sit with ourselves, to integrate what it is that we've learned, to really kind of understand where it is that we have to create order out of a lot of the chaos that we've been sitting in. And little by little, as we organize our physical environment, waiting for our internal environment to gain that clarity, we are going to be putting our ducks in a row, both in the physical realm and our inner realm. And we are going to be gaining a lot more insight the minute that the moon reveals that little sliver of light back in the night sky. That's when we're going to start gaining momentum and clarity. And that's when the plan and the strategy is going to start to form. I do think that there is going to be some burning skin, some burning lips, some dry skin, some sore lips. We do have Mr. Mercury, who does rule over communication, still in Leo energy, and that is a fire energy. And we've been wanting to speak on a lot, and we've been wanting to communicate ourselves, and we haven't been able to do so. And that energy is just kind of building up in a burning type of way. Again, we're sitting in still a lot of fire element up until we shift into this Virgo season. But that burning sensation is definitely having a major intensity, a major focus on our mouths. And I think that there's going to be a lot of jaw pain here this week, or jaw feeling like it's out of alignment. A lot of that is because, again, we're holding tension in our head space and our neck space, which translates into our jaw. Why are we holding that tension? Because the upper chakras are still being activated and they're not integrating with the lower chakras yet, which means that from the shoulders up, we are kind of in a different space. From the shoulders down, we're discombobulated and trying to get into alignment. We need that amalgamation. We need that alignment. We need that integration before we're going to start operating as a whole complete system again. And again, this is why the rewiring, the resetting, the rescripting, the restructuring of our inner realm is taking place here this week to get us on the same page. But when we talk about recalibrations, we have to talk about the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is right below your rib cage. And solar plexus energy comes with gut reactions, gut issues, if you will. Those gut issues are likely, very connected to digestion, but I think that there's going to be gas bubbles, air bubbles that just get stuck. It's a bubble underneath the rib, and it's going to make it feel very uncomfortable to kind of sit, because it does feel like your ribs are overlapping or they're poking into each other, or whatever the case may be. It is going to have a little bit of a confusion situation and scenario pop off with the actual gut, because you're not really going to be able to identify whether you're hungry or whether you're about to puke. And it could be a little bit of column A, it could be a little bit of column B. Typically speaking, Virgo energy rules over the gut and the nervousness of the gut and the worry of the gut. And because the moon in Cancer takes place long before we shift into Virgo season, and Cancer energy, typically speaking, also kind of affects the gut, but more through the heart activations of the chest, of the lungs, that the Cancer energy rules over, it feels like it's setting us up for some seasickness, for some nausea. But again, there's this hunger, this craving to kind of get our shit together. So that's why I think it's going to be very trivial to figure out whether we're hungry or whether we're about to puke. So that's always nice. The jaw issue, as I previously mentioned, there's a lot of tension there in our neck space. And of course, our neck space and our throat space is very triggered and activated by Mercury. Mercury has a lot that he wants to get off of his chest before he takes his rulership in Virgo season, but I don't think he's going to get an opportunity to do that. And if we do have an opportunity to do that, it is going to be like verbal vomit. It's not going to come out in the way that we want it, and therefore it's not going to be well received. So I would put a cautionary note on being very careful with your words, with your tone, with what it is that you're sharing here this week, just because there is an intensity taking place with trying to get us back in an alignment between our inner realm and our outer realm, between those upper chakras and those lower chakras. And I think that because of the heart activations that we are going to be having here this week, again, when the sun is in Leo, when the moon is in Cancer, the luminaries are both in their respective rulerships. That is when the great heart activations are going to take place. With the pressure in the chest, with the pressure in the gut, with the pressure, just throughout the whole body space, like we're clenching our jaw. Thus why I think that the jaw is going to be sore or stiff or out of alignment. It would be hella beneficial to constantly be challenging yourself to release the energy that you're holding in your shoulders and in your neck and in your jaw. But we got a lot going on this week, and I don't think being conscious and aware of the cluster F of energy going on within us is going to be our main focal point. I think there's going to be a lot of things swirling, a lot of things biting for our attention, a lot of distractions coming at us here this week. Because when we talk about rewiring and resetting ourselves, we have to talk about the fact that this is all happening in our nervous system. We have the ascension symptoms that we have because our nervous systems are activated and are responding to the subtle and sometimes not so subtle energetic shifts of the cosmos. And the whole point of, this ascension journey is to regulate and stabilize your nervous system. But when we have energies pop off that are greater than our ability to actually manage, we are at the mercy of just kind of sitting back and doing what we can to soothe the physical form while the nervous system is being rewritten. So you could feel overstimulated, you could be shaking, there could be tremors, you could just feel overly sensitive to, your environment, to sounds. Maybe, you're a little bit jumpy or jittery or edgy. There could be an actual buzz in your body. There could be actual tremors and spasms in your body. All of this is an indicator that you are going through an upgrade. You are going through this recalibration, that you are going through this rewiring energy, which, although probably doesn't feel so good and isn't going to be so fun, should be a huge indicator that the work that you're doing within yourself, both consciously and unconsciously, have been accumulating enough for you to get your nervous system rewritten, to get it re-regulated, to get it kind of realigned, if you will. And a lot of this nervous system activation is coming from the heart activation, the emotional releasing and purging and processing of who it is that we once had to be versus who it is that we currently are. This is a conscious acknowledgement that we are willing to put down the emotional and mental baggage of the past and open ourselves up as a clean operating system that we are to basically, I'm going to say, receive new programs, new operating systems, new applications for habits, for patterns, for behaviors. And although it's going to take the bulk of Virgo season to, download those systems and to have those programs and applications running flawlessly and kind of running in the background at their most optimized processing speeds, we're starting at a 0 degree. You can't get any more real, raw, and vulnerable than that. You can't have any more of a clean beginning than that. And in Virgo energy, the fixer, healer, repairer of the zodiac, it just screams that this is going to be the season that changes the game for us. And I know that we're past the halfway point of this year of 9. And I know that coming into the fall is going to be a little bit tough. I'm not going to say it's going to be any tougher than some of the shitstorms that we've already survived, but it's the time when we start to integrate. So everything that you've gone through, everything that you've experienced, everything that you contemplated, everything that you've sat with up until this point, now it's time to actually integrate it. Now it's time to put forth the action to prove to thyself and to the higher realms of intelligence and guidance that we're listening, we're doing the work, we're doing what needs to be done, even though it's uncomfortable. We are doing it slowly but surely. And when I say slowly but surely, that is the key here. Virgo energy focuses in on the smaller details, the smaller habits. And if you tune in to my daily energy forecast, you would know that recently we've been talking about how, the want, need, and desire to change our whole entire lives seems pretty big. And that's when we get into a state of paralysis because it seems like we would have to change everything. But the magic sauce is realizing that you could wake up every single day and decide to change one thing, big or small, doesn't matter. You don't have to change your career. You don't have to change your house. You don't have to change your family. You could just change your habit. You could change your routine. You could change the way that you wake up. Are you waking up to an alarm that has a sound that absolutely overstimulates your nervous system right from the get-go, and then you spend the entire day on edge trying to recuperate from that jolt of being woken up to an absurd sound? Or maybe you're going to choose to gently wake up to music, to gently wake up to, hemisync or binaural type of music that is going to get your brain functioning long before your body has to be activated. It could be a small change such as, I usually drink 5 coffees a day. I think now I'm going to cut it back to 3. It could be oh, I need to take better care of the vessel, because again, Virgo season is about understanding that we have to strengthen the vessel in order to house the energy that we are essentially receiving with this new operating program. Maybe it's that, okay, well, I need a better exercise routine. So instead of waking up and saying, okay, no more eating sugar, no more eating junk food, no more eating this, no more eating that, and I have to walk for 1 kilometer a day, and I have to do this, this, and this as far as exercise goes, good luck, because you're going to fail miserably. You want to know why? Because you're putting your body in a state of stress. Instead, wake up, make one decision to change one thing in the run of your day, one thing that you eat. Maybe the next day, it's one thing that you could do differently to support a new exercise routine. Maybe the change could just be to stop trash talking yourself. It could be a change in narrative, a change in perspective. Instead of expecting the worst, maybe you could change your mind and only anticipate the best. All of these smaller changes eventually equal up to a greater, grander change. And so what I'm getting at here is that we have a beautiful, raw opportunity at a 0 degree coming at us to flip the script, to start over, to reset, rewire, restructure, reformat, rebuild in a brand new way. So let's not sleep on ourselves. Let's actually do something about it. Let's get in a new mind frame, and let's figure out the small changes that we could make that eventually will be the greater, grander change that we want to see inside of ourselves, and therefore manifest in our physical realms as well. So how do we do that? Well, we got to get tired of our own damn selves. And I already previously mentioned that, but the final days of Leo season here, we are going to be fatigued, tired of it. All the way fed the F up with our situation, with our circumstances, with our own damn selves. Now that doesn't feel good, nor does it feel like something that we want to anticipate having to experience. But let me say to you, when you reach that point where you're just sick of it all, that's where the real change takes place. That is where you wake up the next day and are willing to try to do different things in order to create a different result. That, being tired of everything, is the jump start that we need to get our shit together, to get organized. And it's coming at us here this week. So I want to talk about the wrists for just 1 second. Our hands are portals, right? They are our palm chakras. We have one hand that brings energy in. We have one hand that projects our energy out into the world. Our hands, to put hands on something, is to take action, is to activate our creator abilities. We've been trying to activate these damn creator abilities technically since late fall of last year. This new version of Self has a new program that is currently being kind of, edited. We are going to rewire that program here this week, but our palm chakras are going through a recalibration as well. And when the new programming comes online, we're going to feel the soreness, the stiffness, the tension, the weakness in our wrists. Maybe you're having hand cramps. Maybe there's a finger cramp. Maybe you are having injuries to your fingers. Maybe your nails are suddenly breaking off. Whatever the case may be, there is a concentrated energy that is trying to break down the energy blockages in our palm chakras in order to allow this new programming to flow through at a higher rate than it's able to as of right now. And the reason being is because a lot of us are in a state of paralysis. We don't know what to take action on. We don't know what we want to create. That information, those details, they're coming. But the physical manifestation of having this state of confusion is hand cramps. And so I want you to pay attention to any type of discomfort, any type of sensation that you are having in your fingers and in your hands. I already kind of talked about how we are going through like a threshold type of energy here this week. And yes, there's like a timeline distortion. Yes, there's like a dimensional overlap or dimensional bleed. But I want you to understand that you're going to realize when the shift is actually happening by the shift that takes place in your dream state. So for many of us, we're not comfortable in receiving the kind of information, the kind of situations and circumstances in our waking lives as we're more open-minded to receiving in an altered state, in an unconscious state. And of course, that's our sleep state. And so, like, you may be walking through your day in your waking life. And I know today, I woke up and it's fall here, and we just had a week. Well, we're on 3 weeks of no precipitation whatsoever. Most of this country is on fire. I was going to say half of it is, but most of this country is on fire. I don't believe from natural or organic type of wildfires at all, but that's besides the point. I woke up here today and it felt different. Yes, the air was different. Yes, the temperature was different, but the colors were different as well. And that's why I know that we are on the cusp of a major timeline shift, of a distorted dimensional bleed. And you may feel it in the run of your day saying, something's weird, something's off. Can't put my finger on it, but I know something has changed. And I think that as we get closer to having the sun in Leo and the moon in Cancer energy, which of course is kicking off at the start of this week, I think that's when we are going to really feel the recalibration take hold. I think that we are going to have not only indicators in our waking lives, but we're really going to receive the jolt of change and transformation in our dream state. And so I feel like it's a good practice to be paying attention to your dreams, to be kind of aware of how the dream state changes, the people in your dreams, the concepts and the storylines of your dreams. All of that is very telling. Not only what you're unconsciously processing, but where it is that, you are evolving in your soul self. I think that's going to be the real kicker that kind of, tells us that we are mid-transition here this week, and that is going to be mid-week this week. And I think that that's going to be when the game actually changes. Now, that being said, it means that we have to understand that the dream state is going to provide us with a lot of the emotional and mental processing that we might not be open or capable of processing in our waking state. Again, I've already mentioned about the heart activations. I've already mentioned about the flashbacks that need to happen, about the review situation that we're going through as we wrap up Leo season and as we catapult into this rewiring season of Virgo. And so the dream state is likely going to mirror back to you the heavier parts that your conscious self, your waking self, is unable to process. So there could be, I know Mercury is no longer retrograde. That doesn't mean that there isn't flashbacks. There could be old people, either from this incarnation or previous ones, that appear in your dream state. You could find yourself in a dream that you had, 20 years ago. You could find yourself facing situations and circumstances that you didn't want to live through the first time around, that you don't want to relive ever again. You could be reliving those situations and scenarios in your dream state. And although that's very jolting and it doesn't feel good to wake up in a state of chaos and panic and to be overwhelmed emotionally and fixated on it mentally throughout the course of your next day, it is something that needs to happen in order to remove those particular memory patterns, that emotional compacted junk and gunk and residue from your body, from your consciousness, from your emotions, from your cellular memory. So I would suspect that that is going to be like major pop-offs, major indicators that we are going through the last haul of the residual purge that we need in order to remove the old programming of the old version of self. And of course, doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. You're supposed to lean into it and dissect it and ask every ache and pain and every, not so nice thought or feeling what it's trying to teach you, what it's trying to show you, what you could learn from it. You need to be acting as a 2-year-old with the utmost curiosity of the world and asking why. You ever hang around a toddler and you just, well, why? Why is the grass green? Well, why? Well, the bird, how did the birds eat the grass? Well, why? Well, how? Well, why? Well, how? You need to adopt that curiosity. We have gone through a societal, I'm going to call it indoctrination, to shut down our brains, to make us not ask questions. That's what they want from us. The more you can ask why, the more neural pathways are firing in your brain, the more, let's call it, circuits and sparks you're creating in your brain, which means that you're reaching higher frequencies. The whole point is to reach that 144,000 frequency of opening up every single petal of every single chakra in your physical body in order to be operating at that voltage, at that hertz in your brain, in your neural pathways, in order to actually escape this goddamn matrix that all of us are currently stuck in. Information and wisdom are not enough. Curiosity is, yes, what killed the cat, but is also what is going to set us free. So I would definitely recommend that you put your detective hat on and that you open up your mind to a level of curiosity that you haven't had since you were a kid. Specifically this week, with all of the triggers and activations trying to illuminate where there's blockages still left in the physical form, where it is that there's constructs, externally speaking, that need to be collapsed, we have to gain a bigger, broader perspective in order to rewire the brain in our favor. And so I would invite you to lean the F in. So guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about here for this week. I'm actually excited for this week because Lord Jesus knows you don't find yourself in a state of hell and just decide to give up and live there. You push through it so that you can get out of hell. And I don't know about you all, but I am tired of all of this hell-like situation and circumstances, hell-like energy that we've been having to sit in. Again, we have just been revving our tires with nowheres to go, creating a lot more smoke than there needs to be, and then complaining that we can't see a damn thing, and then complaining that we're choking on the smoke in which we're creating. Leo season has not really been the Leo season that we deserved. Thus, with all of these retrograde planets trying to rebuild the inner structure, this week is where that rewiring, that reprogramming comes out to play. So let's celebrate it. Let's lean all the way into the discomfort. Let's fast forward through this particular transitional period and let's get the show on the road. I thank you so much for tuning in. I send you so much love, and we'll talk to you soon.